Allow me to welcome Vincent Nguyen from Business Global Intelligence. He also happens to be a lyricist and songwriter, so the very powerful music you heard during the break that was encouraging international trade and being willing to take risks was actually written and set to music by Vincent himself. I wanted to bring this up earlier, but I did forget. So, Vincent, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak, for a very nice introduction. Yes, I created that song specifically for this event, basically to highlight the strength and the ambition of Canada to go be, like a true trading nation, right? Anyway, so very briefly, my name is Vincent. I've been in this international business for many, many years, over 3 decades. I used to be working for a couple of very big multinational banks and involved in international trade. And here in Canada, I had altogether probably over 10 years working with RBC and BMO also in the trade finance area. So trade finance and trade, international trade is always very close to my heart. Okay, I just want to quickly show something. I know that we talked a lot about this in the previous section. I just want to quickly show this to show how much we talk about the over-reliance on the U.S. markets, and this actually come up as something that we try to, to avoid now. People mention about the very own wisdom saying, we don't put all eggs in one basket, but you can see how many, eggs we put in the U.S. basket. It's a figurative speech because actually we didn't literally ship a lot of eggs to the U.S. Even in, during the very recent egg crisis in the US, we didn't really ship a lot of eggs to them, so it's a figurative speech. Again, you might not be able to see this. I just want to quickly show this list because I will bring it up at the later part of my presentation about this is the list of products we're actually shipping to the US and buying from the US, right? I just want to bring them up to show that many of those products can be sourced from outside the US or can be sold outside the US. So it's just a quick reminder that US is not the only market that we have to be relied on. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about what you heard in the first presentation, the first panel. People mentioned about Vina mentioned about the Indo-Pacific strategy, and the Trade Commission has also mentioned about the Indo-Pacific strategy, and they opened up a lot of new offices in that region. I just want to quickly say that ASEAN is, we talk about Indo-Pacific region, and ASEAN is a group of 10 nations actually play a very important role in that strategy because ASEAN, as you can see some stats here, is actually a very dynamic region, high growth region, and including some countries, like Singapore, and that's a very great market that we should be focusing on. And again, Canada has done a lot of things to increase trade with ASEAN. And I just try to bring it up again, just kind of reiterate that the interest that a lot of people, a lot of the panelists already talked about in the previous session. I want to bring this up. It's kind of very interesting. We talk about the Indo-Pacific strategy. We talk about ASEAN. And maybe a lot of you here might not have heard about something even bigger, the RCEP. Right? It's the newest kids on the block, the largest trading bloc in the world. As you can see, it kind of comparing the sizes of different trading blocks, and it's bigger than USMCA, bigger than the EU. Maybe some of you might have wondered what it is, the AFCTA, back there. So if you haven't known, that stands for the African Continent Free Trade Area, which actually the largest free trade region in the world by the number of countries. It's connect 1.3 billion people across 55 markets in Africa, right? So again, I want to relate to the previous session that some panelists point out and to respond to some question that we don't have to focus only on the bigger market. And that's another thing, like we talk about, maybe we talk about that a little bit in the Q&A, but people ask a question about where should I go, right? And of course you go to those bigger markets, but the thing is, bigger markets also means it's very crowded. There's a lot of competition, right? So sometimes it makes sense to aim for the smaller sort of, markets. And to be very honest, Africa is a kind of overlooked market for Canada. Like China, for example, made a lot of money trading with Africa, right? So it doesn't mean that it's something we should overlook. And I'm glad that we talked today about the African market is one of the main focuses that should get the attention of Canadian businesses. Again, I just want to speak a little bit about a particular country, a little bit biased because I came from that country originally. So, but there's a reason for that, and not just because I'm Vietnamese, I bring it up. But it's basically you can see some stats here that actually Vietnam is among ASEAN the largest trading partner of Canada at this time, right? And again, there's all these good things I put up there to tell you why this is one of the things that should be on the radar. Now, I want to bring up again very quickly a few slides about what we actually currently export to Vietnam and import from Vietnam, right? The lists are there not really for you to really take a detailed analysis. It's mostly to, like I said, if you compare this list with the list we trading with the US, you can see that a lot of products in the two lists going to be similar. So again, Vietnam, ASEAN, or Indo-Pacific can be a very good alternative. I'm not saying we're replacing the US, of course we can't. But it's more like we try to diversify the markets and try to be less dependent on a particular market, right? Well, again, this is something that I just bring up, for the sake of having some specific examples of what kind of products that would be a good demand. But like some people mentioned in the previous panel, there's no limitation in terms of what products it would be appealing to the market. It's just a matter of how can you access a market, how you position yourself, and most importantly, we talk about that hopefully in the Q&A, like what do my team can help. Like my team work very closely with the Trade Commissioner. For example, we heard about Trade Commissioner's presentation. They help you to a certain extent, but you need somebody to actually help you to execute the plan and to get all the necessary local relationships and local expertise to sort out a lot of challenges of the international trade. Like international trade is very fascinating, but it's also very complicated. So I would stop my presentation here, and I hope that we can address, and I will be happy to answer a lot of your questions during the Q&A session. So thank you so much for listening, and it's a pleasure to be here among you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dika.
To perhaps add my 2 cents on some of the questions that have been put up by the audience. I would like to first speak perhaps about the aspect of the government support and policy and programs, and the other aspect about how to actually get the reliable leads in terms of importers, exporters, or business. So first off, I heard from the audience that we say, okay, the question is it, can the Canadian government do a better job in terms of creating better policies, better, improving red tape, creating better, paperwork or processes, whatever needs to facilitate more successful business from Canadian companies? Yes, certainly the answer is yes. But I want to put a different question, like have Canadian companies been able to take full advantage of everything existing policy and program and support available for them to expand business from Canada? The answer is no. Right? So I want to be really fair to the government here. I'm not the government guy, but I want to be really fair, to the government, right? We have to play a part in here, right? I want to give you 2 examples. First off, we didn't talk about that today, but there was another great, free trade agreement between Canada and the EU, the CETA, right? And the fact is, after 10 years or 15 years implement CETA, there are at least 20 times more of European companies be successful in doing business in Canada through CETA than Canadian companies. And I give you another example is where I talk about, if you remember my presentation about Vietnam, ASEAN, like Vietnam selling to Canada like $10 million, and the other side is like less than $1 billion from Canada to Vietnam, right? So we have to ask a question, given the same business conditions, the same government regulations, everything, how come companies from EU, from ASEAN would be more successful in doing business here than Canadian companies? So something about, we have to ask ourselves, right? What holds us back? And I hate to say this, being Canadian, but I think we tend to say, sit back, say, okay, let's wait for the government to do something better job, creating better rules and blah, blah, and then when everything's ideal, and I go to do my job. And I think a lot of you here probably familiar with the Nike brand, right? And I love one of their trademark slogan, just do it. Just do it, right? You learn by doing, and there's so many things. You cannot just sit there and say, okay, I'm not doing anything, and just wait until Canadian government creates something really, really great for us to really be successful. We're going to be successful together, business and government, right? We cannot rely only on government, and business alone cannot be successful either. We have to be a partnership, right? But we can't just sit there and say, okay, I can't do this, can't do that because it's so difficult, so complicated, and so this and that. And so, like I said, ask ourselves a question: how come people can be successful from outside of Canada? Right? They're facing the same things, right? They import to Canada, they're facing the same customs rule and everything. How come they're selling more here than Canadians selling overseas, right? So that's one thing I want to talk about. Like we have to take action. I'm a firm believer of taking action, right? And you don't just say, okay, you can blame all the things you want, but the thing that have you done your job, like we talk about that in the panel as well. Have you done your homework? Have you taken full advantage of every support? I can tell from my own experience, again, it's not ideal, but Canada has one of the best ecosystem in the world. And I can say that I've been working in many countries around the world. We have one of the best ecosystems to support companies to be successful in doing international business. But have we, all of us, actually been aware of all those things that are already available here? The answer is no, right? We see that Trade Commissioner, I'm working very closely with Trade Commissioner for many years. They keep sending the message that we are here to help you guys to do business internationally. How come after 50 years, 60 years, we still have to do that pitch? Right? People still a lot of people don't know what Trade Commissioner is, right? Yeah. So like I said, be fair to everyone. I'm not defending the government. Like they certainly can do a better job, but like I said, just do it, right? And then together we will be successful.
And I can tell you.
The other thing I want to talk about again, the question about how you ask, okay, government, can you give us some more help to get a better, more reliable leads and that kind of thing, right? Again, to be very fair, I don't think any government in the world have the resources to do that for you, because again, there's a part about the policy and support in terms of governmental support, but then there's a business aspect, the operations aspect, the logistic aspect. This is our job, right? Business people, you can say, okay, government, do everything for me, right? And so again, we hear about the Trade Commissioner, we hear about all the great tools like Import Genius. We can easily find nowadays with information and AI, it's actually not very difficult to get a list of suppliers, like suppliers or customers. The question is, and again, that's something like my team come to the picture. That's why I said we work very closely with EDC or TCS, for example. We help companies to vet, to qualify those leads, right? This is the only way. You can ask the government, no matter how great they are, I'm guarantee you, the American government is not doing a better job. The Australian government is not doing a better job. The UK government is not doing a better job. But they are very successful internationally because they know how they can actually get other help, support to validate the leads and to get the good, reliable potential suppliers or customers. Again, it's all about doing your own work. Don't blame the government. Take advantage of what is available and do your job. I'm sorry to say this, but as a businessman, I think we also accountable for our own success, right? So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Sure. No? Okay. I would point out that having been based in Africa myself, I work closely with Trade Commissioner Service in Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Johannesburg, as in Pretoria. And I know that they went out of their way when Canadian companies came to town to try and introduce them to the right folks. They would reach out to those Canadians who worked in other sectors of the economy to say, we're going to meet, I don't know, a food canning company. Do you know any of their competitors? Should these people who visited meet anyone else? But it was too rare to see that level of energy. And sometimes they came up against the strangest bureaucracy internally, which meant that they had to stop at some point or something. So I think the consortium approach has a lot to be said for it. Vincent, I hear what you're saying about don't blame the government for everything, but I do think having a call center that can answer phones 24 hours a day is maybe not such a big thing to ask out of them either. So I think on that note, if only to allow all of you a chance, not only to enjoy the lovely facilities that we have here, but also to ask the panel questions more one-on-one, I think we'll bring this to an